What's this? An air vent?
Oh, it does let in the sunshine.
Proves you're spying.
If there are any Able Grables worth looking at.
You think this is a joke? An Italian building Allied bombs. Might as well throw out a welcome mat for Mussolini.
I left Italy when I was 2 years old.
Fox in the hen house. Isn't that what you said? Well, I'm smoking you out. I say 2 words about this, you're gone.
Bastards already got my father in some internment camp. No good reason except he's Italian. This job feeds my family. Say 1 word, and I'll make sure you regret it.
Welcome
And
back
that
to the
is
show.
a scene from
Great.
Bomb Girls. We are joined now by Meg Tilly. Of course, you saw her in the scene. How are you?
Hi, Meg. How are you?
Good.
Nice
We're all
to see you.
giggling because Mike was
Well,
narrating.
I don't want to give anything away, but you know, as the series progresses, that relationship becomes, well, it maintains its passion in different ways. And
all the relationships evolve.
Tell us
As we
about
go.
Bomb Girls. The
Yeah, this is
concept of
awesome.
this show is so amazing.
Bomb Girls takes place in World War II, and it's in a munitions factory, so that's the basis of. So you have all these World War II shows, but this is a show about the war being fought on the home front. The women who have husbands, children, sons over there, brothers, and the women who made the bombs and the bullets for the guns, and kept the war going, really.
And this was a fascinating time. I mean, I remember talking to my grandmother before she passed away about her experiences during the war, because this is what she did. I mean, you know, she worked to supply the troops and all that other stuff, but it was such a time of social change for her, and a realization of what she was capable of outside of this pigeonhole she'd sort of been raised in.
Yeah. I love coming here. You guys are so smart. It's always like, yes, that's exactly it. You want to talk more about this time. But that's exactly it.
And it's also the perspective that we don't see in film and television of women during World War II, and how strong they were, and the changes that the war made into women in the workplace.
Yeah, exactly. It was huge, because for the first time, women were getting a paycheck. They were, I mean, you could do laundry at somebody's house or do cleaning, or there were some women who could teach, but really there were certain things, and all of a sudden they're doing all these different occupations and doing work that they always thought was for a man, and getting a paycheck and making the decision how they wanted to spend it, how they wanted to, what they wanted to do.
You can pour tea, you can make a bomb, and we're looking at that right there.
Oh, really? Yeah, exactly. And so it was a time of just everything shifting. And so they were worried about their loved ones, and they felt a purpose. They felt like they were making a difference in the world, other than, you know, cooking and taking care of the children, which makes a difference as well.
Yeah.
So, and then after the war, they were all told, you're not welcome, and that was the dark ages for women.
What was the revenge? They raised a generation of women who went on to really just
burn some bras, baby.
I know.
I mean, it's kind of
Exactly.
off topic, but I was reading this really interesting article the other day about how your experiences in your life, they've discovered, actually alter your DNA. And that is then passed on to your children on a genetic basis. So when you have fundamental experiences with a generation like that, that gets played forward in a way that you can't really predict.
Yeah. I feel like it did. I feel like it got into the DNA, and then I think the men came back, and everybody's like, it's sort of like if somebody in a relationship's had an affair, and everybody's like, okay, that happened, it's over, it's done, we won't speak of it again, it never happened, and we're just going forward.
Moving on.
Yes, and you're moving, and that's fine for a few months, maybe even a few years, but everything's changed, and I think that's what the 50s was. It was like the women's place and the wardrobe. Everything became more structured, and the cocktails, and it was this kind of quiet desperation that you're back in the box, and the box is fine. That's where you wanted to be. You've been praying for this box. You've been praying for the end of the war, and yet it's like.
Yeah.
And
There's
then
so much
comes the 60s and the 70s.
Now, tell us about your character and the women around you, too, because it's such a great cast with you, too.
Yeah, it's a wonderful cast. These young women are so talented. And then we have a lot of the other character actors, like me, who are incredibly talented, too.
Yes, you are.
But it's just like, there's just the directors, 2 of the directors were women who did 2 of the blocks, Adrienne Mitchell and Ann Wheeler, and then we had Ken Girardi, who did the middle chunk. So we had a really strong, the producers, Janice and Wendy were producers, and then there's Michael, who did Queer as Folk, who's writing it. So we had female writers and writers, so it was very strong woman power. So it was really cool set.
I was
It
just
wasn't
gonna
like
say.
a hormone crazy
Yeah.
set. It was like everybody pulling, you know, and a lot of everybody was great.
How proud were you
Great.
guys to play these characters
Very proud.
too and portray them that way? It must have been so fun to delve into the history.
It was really, really cool because you're doing the history of it, but then you're diving into the skin. And as you do it, the weird thing is that you're not just playing her, but there were certain things like when it would rain, they would give me a plastic bonnet that would keep the hair from that time. And as I tied it on, every time I tied it on, I felt my grandmother because she never went out without her plastic bonnet. And she was in that time, and it was like, oh. So every time it rained, I was so, and, you know, some of the younger girls who don't have, they're like, I'll use an umbrella. I'm like, where's my plastic bonnet? Because it was like, yeah, you know, and I saw I get more of an understanding of just her way. And actually, I went through a box of old things and I found a bunch of her letters that she had written to me. And it was written all very proper and correct, but every once in a while, there was that little like, okay, I have to, you know, I'm falling off the page. There was a sense of humor in this, and she ran away from home when she was 14 to get her education and worked in Seattle, raising kids, and she put herself through university. So she was one of these women,
What
and
an
she accomplished so
inspiration.
much. I know.
Well, and to be able to incorporate a little bit of homage into your work, right, and recognize the strength of you know, your grandmother directly, but you know that whole
all these
generation's
women.
pretty
I
special.
talk to people and they're like, oh, my grandmother worked
everybody's got a story.
my great aunt worked in the bomb factories. I mean, so many people worked in the bomb. I didn't even know that we had bomb factories here in Canada.
Like-
Shipbuilding on the West Coast,
Yeah, in
bombs back
Canada.
east.
Yeah. And people came from all over Canada, and so women who had just grown up in those days, you were born, you were raised, you married, and you died in the town that you were in. And first, you know, your father would give you whatever you would earn, but then the husband did, and now all of a sudden, women came from all over Canada to the bomb factories, and it just changed their idea of the world.
And the idea of the war, because they're making the bombs that are going to be going oceans away and killing other people.
I know.
Other women.
there's-
I mean,
and
that's
there's-
the weird one.
Yeah, and there's that dichotomy of, you know, like my husband who was in the first in the show, who was in the first war, and living with that, and then my boys are in this war, but that dichotomy of I'm doing what's right. But I'm sure that over in Germany, they're like, we're doing what's right. We're defending our rights. We're defending our children, our livelihood. And yet I'm like, you know, so, and sometimes Lorna would do something, I'd get the next script and I'd read it and I'd be like, oh, Lorna. Lorna, really? And then I'd go to Michael, does she need, you know, it's like, oh, no. And I'd be like, I can't, but then I'd have to figure out her reasons why she's so prejudiced, why she's so, you know.
It was a different time.
It was a different time.
Yeah.
It was a different time, and she is more so because it's that kind of magical thinking. If I am strong, if I am diligent enough, my boys will be safe overseas, doing incredibly dangerous
What a
things.
fascinating project for you to, because you sort of left acting by the wayside for many years to raise your children.
And wrote some amazing books we've had you on the show for.
Everything. But, you know, it's fascinating having known you a little bit and talked about your books, because I think for you there needs to be some intellectual stimulation to the projects that you're taking on for you to really sort of involve yourself. So what a way to get back into your work and something that you love.
Yeah, it was fun because with the books I love doing them, but you're in a room by yourself looking at a computer screen, and here it's like you've got Eric, who's like a brilliant DP,
You're
you know, just
playing off
tweaking
people.
that, and there's these young actors, and you're like, oh my God, you know, and you're getting, and then Adrienne Mitchell, who's like such a talented, you know, she was one of the creators and such a talented director, and she's like, no, do it more like, oh, and I'm like, oh yeah, oh, okay, you know,
And there's nobody doing that on your computer screen.
Nobody's doing that. No, you're right, and you're like, this sucks. Does it suck? Maybe it sucks, you know.
Why was this the right project? I mean, there's so many reasons we've just talked about, but why back to acting for you? Never mind series television.
I know. I wasn't planning on acting. I did that little thing for Eric, you know, because in Caprica, but really that was just so that I could see him because he was really busy and I could meet his wife and kids. So I did that cameo, and that was it.
You did a cameo.
That's how you see your friends.
I know, exactly. Well, because he was really busy, right? He was directing and acting, and so then when I finished, my husband Don said, "So does it spark a fire?" I'm like, "No." I said, no, that was fun.
Yeah,
I'm glad to revisit, but no. So I was really quite sure about it. And then my sister gave me this bracelet for Christmas that had a George Eliot quote on it that said, it's never too late to be what you might have been. And at first I was like, yeah, and then I thought,
the Tilly family, man, you guys are
I know.
deep. It's not just a present; it's a message.
Well, I know. I was a little pissed, but then these words dropped. I always wanted to do theater, and so I thought, well, I'll do a play. And I thought, oh, that's so scary. What if nobody wants me to do a play? I've never, really. I did one play at the very beginning, but what if? So then I thought, okay, I'll do this play, and it was amazing. It was terrifying. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Fire?
Yeah.
No. No. I got it.
We have to go back to the fact that
so
you
my
just
sister
said,
said,
Virginia Woolf. What a play to do.
Oh, I know. I'm like
Wow.
nuts. Well, because I'd read it and I'd been like, oh yeah, that's an amazing character. I didn't quite realize I'd read it a long time ago, and so when the opportunity came, I'm like, okay, sure. So I got that in December. By I can't remember, like February, March, I committed to do that. I started rehearsing, that spring. And then, so what happened is my sister, because I didn't even have an agent. First, I'm like, okay, I want to do a play. How do I do it? So then I look up and I'm like, well, Toronto has a lot of big theaters. So I faxed a little, to whom it may concern.
No, you did not.
No, I didn't know.
Do you
So I'm
have
like,
the email, lady?
well, I didn't know because I thought, well, so I wrote out a little letter and I faxed it to them saying, if you're interested. I told my sister, nobody called back. She goes, Meg, they thought you were nuts. They said, just write to the...
Is it really Meg Tilly?
Exactly.
Would Meg Tilly have an agent?
Exactly. And so then she said, you need an agent. So she got me, she said, she wrote it, confidential email out to all comers, whatever, to people she knows, anybody knows somebody. And so I got Rich Kaplan, who set me up with Brian to do Virginia Woolf. So then he called when I was doing Virginia Woolf and said, there's this really cool series, Bomb Girls. I'm like, I'm really busy. He said, well, they'll wait and see you after you finish the show. And I'm like, well, okay, because I didn't want him to think, because you don't get paid anything for theater, which was why I didn't do theater when I had kids, because I have to support them, right? But they're supported, they're gone. So I can be as irresponsible as I like with my finances now. So that's why I decided to do theater. So I'm like, I didn't want to do a series. I had no intention of doing a series or even film, but I didn't really want to tell Rich because I didn't want him to think that I was just going to use his good, and just do plays.
I'm never going to earn you money as an agent.
$50 commission for this one, So I said, well, sure, I'll meet them, pretending to be a team player, but I really wasn't. But then I walk in the room and Adrian Mitchell's there, and I'd worked a little bit on the scenes, because it was 3 days after I finished the show, so I was still a little bit Virginia, but instead of Lorna. But then I walk in and she gives me correction. I'm like, well, that's really good. And then I do it again. She gives me another little correction. I'm like, oh, she's
also
like
really
talented.
Wow.
And so at first I thought it was a fluke. By the fourth one, I was like, this lady
and
is
that
awesome.
lit the fire?
And then so I got in the car, and my husband drove me because he's like, it's like a road trip. Like he's here now. He drives me when I come to Vancouver. I get on these one-way roads.
He's finished driving the kids.
I know.
Now he drives his wife.
I know. So anyway, I get in the car and he's like, so how was it? And I said, she's really amazing. I said, I was surprised myself. I said, if they want me to do the show, I'll do it.
Do it.
And then I got the offer the next day.
With Meg Tilly, who's auditioning who?
No.
Who's running the audition?
Well, I think auditions for everybody should be that way because it really is about quality of life, right? So if you guys are going for, and you're like, ooh, they seem like a bit of an who wants to spend, because it's for 6 shows. Mm-hmm. But then, once I said I would do it, then they're like, well, yes, but if it's really successful, then they might
more than
do another miniseries or another, so you want to be with good people. You want to. Because
it's a creative process. You want to create it.
Life is too short, right?
Amen.
I'm in that
did you
lucky
thank
position.
your sister for that bracelet?
Oh my God, yes.
No.
She's getting so tired of me.
Give her a
thanking
bracelet
for
back
it.
that just says life is too short.
I know.
Yeah, that goes over Christmas time.
Thank you, Meg. Always
Thank
so
you.
nice to see you. Of course, you
Such a
can
great
watch
series.
Bomb Girls. You can check it out Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock. Don't miss it. It is amazing.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
It's a really good thing that we didn't decide at our early career whether working with an was going to be an impediment to future success because we would have stopped day 2.
Day 2.
Day 2.
Who's who?